محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہ.
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد.
فدا ہوں سپے سلامی ہے جس کا نام حسین میرا موئی میرا
میرا امام حسین میرا موئی میرا آقا میرا امام حسین.
صبا کو بیچ کے روزے پہ کر رہا ہوں دعا کرے قبول
الہی میرا سلام حسین کرے قبول. الہی میرا سلام حسین.
جو کربلا کی زمین پر ہوا تھا ان کا عروج تو پھر کے دیکھتے قبر کا مقام
حسین. تو پھر کے دیکھتے تھے قبر کا مقام حسین.
سنا نہائے کسی سنگ دل نے لا کہا رسول کا ہوں
نواسا ہے میرا نام حسین. رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا نام حسین.
نہ پوچھو وقت وہ کیسا تھا جب مدینہ سے چلے ہر ایک کا
لیتے ہوئے سلام حسین. چلے ہر ایک کا لیتے ہوئے سلام حسین. میرا
پناہ لیتے تھے دشمن اجل کے دامن میں وہ جوار کرتے تھے کر علی کا نام
حسین. جوار کرتے تھے لے کر علی کا نام حسین. فدا ہوں اس پہ صلوات اللہم صلی علی صلوات محمد وآل محمد. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. گھر سے جب بہرے سفر سید عالم نکلے سر جھکائے ہوئے بادیدے پرنم نکلے خیش و فرزان کمر باندھ کے باہم نکلے رو کے فرمایا کہ شہر سے اب رو کے فرمایا کہ شہر سے اب نکلے رات سے گریہ زہرا کی صدا آتی ہے دیکھے قسمت ہمیں کس دشت دیکھے قسمت ہمیں کس دشت میں لے جا چین سے سب ہے گھروں میں مجھے ملتا نہیں چین سخت آفت میں ہے اب آپ کا یہ نور العین ٹکڑے دل ہوتا ہے جب رو کے حرم کرتے ہیں بین ننھے بچوں کو بھلا لے کے کدھر جا ننھے بچوں کو بھلا لے کے کدھر جا شہر میں چین نہ جنگل میں اما ملتی ہے دیکھیے قبر مسافر کو کہاں دیکھیے قبر مسافر کو کہاں ملتی ہے یہ وہ دن ہے کہ پرندے بھی نہیں چھوڑتے گھر مجھ کو درپیش ہے ان روزوں میں آفت کا سفر ہے کہیں قتل کا ساماں کہیں لٹ جانے کا ڈر ساتھ ہے بچوں کا بادشاہ جین تنگ جینے سے ہوں پاس اپنے بلاؤ نانا اپنی تربت میں نواسے کو چھپا اپنی تربت میں نواسے کو چھپا لو نانا کئی دن سے تیری مادر کو نہیں خبر میں چین آئی تھی شب کو میرے پاس یہ کرتی ہوئی بہن گھر میرا لٹتا ہے فریاد رسول و ثقلین صبح کو اپنا وطن چھوڑ کے جاتا صبح کو اپنا وطن چھوڑ کے جاتا ہے حسین کہنے آئی ہوں کہ منہ قبر سے موڑوں گی میں اپنے بچے کو اکیلا تو نہ چھوڑ اپنے بچے کو اکیلا تو نہ چھوڑوں گی میں آکے عباس نے سر رکھ دیا پائین مزار آئی زہرا کی صدا میں تیری غربت کے نثار اپنے پیاروں کے برابر میں تجھے کرتی ہوں پیار دھیان بھائی کی حفاظت کر رہے اے دل کوئی غربت میں اسے مار نہ ڈالے بیٹا میرا شبیر ہے اب تیرے حوالے میرا شبیر ہے اب تیرے حوالے بیٹا صلوات
Salawat. Now I'd like to request Brother Sean Abbas to come and recite a poem. Salawat.
Salawat. How many years have we wept? In the eye, your name is kept. Hussain, we'll never forget. When the month of grief descends, the love of your name ascends. And with it, tears the eye it sends. Hearts, you see, hearts were not made to be torn. Oh, that is the reason that tears are born. But for you, Hussain, hearts break and mourn. You died, but live in the heart. Your story tears hearts apart. Your head from body they part. You tied heaven to the earth. Oh, Hussain, you tied heaven to the earth, and you gave heaven its worth. You tied heaven to the earth, and you gave heaven its worth. Muhammad wept with your birth. Oh, who was named heaven's prince. The earth misses your presence, Zainab laments your absence. You rose against the tyrant. Of him, there's not a remnant. You rose against the tyrant. Of him, there's not a remnant, yet millions for you lament. Sheikhs, writing of you this pen, mourning you one night shakes men, and the nights mourn are 10. We heard when for help you'd call, our tears caught you when you'd fall. O Hussain, heart to you crawl. Oh, whose swords on you would pray, hearts ask us from grief they sway. Help those hearts on Judgment Day. Salawat.
Assalamu alaikum. Please recite salawat for the safety of those who read. Tonight, Dr. Hazari will be talking about Islam and its advocacy for sweeping social change. Before we welcome him, I would like to read a short poem in Urdu. Ghurur toot gaya, koi martaba na mila, jafa ke baad unhe hasil jafa na mila. Sare Hussain mila hai Yazid ko, lekin shikas ye hai ke phir bhi jhuka hua na mila. Now please welcome Shaykh Dr. Mehdi Hazari with a loud salawat.
صل على محمد وآل محمد. على حب فاطمة الزهراء صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لتعجيل فرج الإمام صاحب العصر والزمان صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين. السلام عليك وعلى ولدك المظلوم أبي عبد الله الحسين. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. يا غريب يا مظلوم يا عطشان كربلاء. ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم. أمن من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار ولن تجد لهم نصيرا إلا الذين تابوا واصلحوا واعتصموا بالله واخلصوا دينهم لله فأولئك مع المؤمنين وسوف يؤتي الله المؤمنين أجرا عظيما آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear brothers and sisters, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when he was leaving Mecca, he made a statement, and the words of the Imam in every one of his statements has a purpose, and there is a pointed message, not just for those who were lost or misguided or who needed to be alerted to what was happening or warned, but for his own followers as well. He said in one of the sentences that the life of this world has, and I'm paraphrasing to some degree, has turned into a source of evil. And when he said that, he was suggesting that there were too many pitfalls in the life. There were so many things that even for the most devout, that the life of this world is a means by which you can slip. Wal-'ayadhu billah. And maybe by his statement and by those words, he was warning us and telling us that at no point should you fall asleep. And we mentioned this last night, that it is very easy in the comfort of life that your heart goes to sleep and that you become so comfortable that you lose sight of those things that are pulling on your sensibilities, on your heart, on your morality, on your mind. And you see that even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent over 100,000 anbiya and mursaleen, so many messengers, heavenly books, insan today, just think over the last few thousand years, where are we? And if I were to ask you to take a glance at the sort of the scope of humanity and the spectrum of what human beings are from one end to the other, would you say we live in a believing world? I have a fairly pessimistic view of the world that we live in. Yes, humanity has great goodness in it, but if you look at the world, I would think that the vast majority of us, at least those who believe strongly in Allah, in righteousness, in the path of Allah, the religion of Allah, will look at the world and say, yes, maybe there are good people, but so many people are misguided. And the thing is that the prophets and the messengers came for the very purpose of bringing us onto the path of salvation. That's why Quran, it describes that saying, وَمَا نُرْسِلُ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ. We send the prophets and the messengers only for the purpose of giving good news and warning the people. فَمَنْ آمَنَ وَأَصْلَحَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Those who believe and do one more thing. And the topic over the next 10 nights is about reformation in some form. And we talked about it yesterday. We began the conversation. Yet the ayah, it says, if you believe, and it does not stop. And you will see that this is the trend in the Holy Quran. If you study the Quran, and I exhort all of you and remind myself first, study the Holy Quran. The Quran is not a book to just be read from cover to cover. It is a blessing, it will give you blessing, but it should be pondered upon word, structure upon structure, sentence upon sentence, because it has such deep and an expounding message. So in this ayah, Allah, He says, I sent the messengers, they were bringers of good news, they were bearers of a warning to you that stay on the path of God. So whosoever believed, and did one more thing. Reformed. فَمَنْ آمَنَ وَأَصْلَحَ. They believed and they reformed. And this word islah, you can translate it into different words in English. But the root meaning, the significance of that word, I will explain a little when I move forward. But islah has to go hand in hand with belief. It's not just that you believe. Because so many of us, so I ask this question a lot, are there any Boy Scouts here? Yeah, a few? Good. Maybe there are some Girl Scouts in the sisters' side. Do you guys have a badge for Iman, for faith? No? You have a badge for tying a nice strong knot, making a fire? Although these days maybe cut down on making fires. I'm an environmental scientist and wildfire smoke is killing us. You get badge for everything. You don't get a badge for Iman? You say, Ya Allah, I believe, so I get a badge? Why? Because once you get the badge, automatically you're a believer. You're going to Jannah, right? It is not like that. I wish it was that way. The test is in the fact that you say from your mouth that you are a mu'min, and the imtihan will begin. The minute you say from your mouth, I am a believer, your path of struggle has begun. And believe me, it will only get harder, because that is the path of a mu'min. If it is getting easier for you, then you have to look in the mirror very, very hard and question yourself. What am I living and how am I living? That's why it says that you believe and you reform. You believe and you set things right. Islah is about setting things right. And if you do so, فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, they will have no fear on them and they will not be sorrowful. They will not fear anything that comes. We have two problems in life. We fear the future, we fear the uncertain, and we are sad because of the things we have lost. No? Two things, fear and sadness. Allah says if you believe and if you set things right, then you will not have any fear and you will not have any sadness. So Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wa salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa Muhammad. He relates in Nahj al-Balagha, he says Allah chose the prophets. And it is reported that he said that he chose the prophets and he sent them, he assigned them a mission. And when they came down with that mission, they exhorted the communities of humanity. They spoke to them, warned them, and told them about three things. Three things. One is mithaq al-fitra. He uses this term, mithaq al-fitra. In Quran, when the word mithaq is used, it means an appointed term to fulfill something. So when he said mithaq al-fitra, he said the prophets came to ensure that humanity fulfills the nature that is buried inside of them. Ya Allah, Amir al-Mu'mineen's word, very deep. He says they came to make you fulfill the nature that Allah has embedded inside of you. Now the only reason maybe that he's reminding us is that we forget our nature. We forget the fitrah that Allah has put inside, and that on the day of judgment we will have to stand in front of him and we will have to answer that did we do what fitrah was drawing us to, or were we going against it? He says the second thing, he says mansi al-ni'mah. The second thing that you have to remember is in the message of the prophets and the messengers is that you must remember all the blessings that you have forgotten. The prophets and messengers came. So imagine, just like the first point, maybe we are forgetting. There is ni'mah that Allah has given to us that we are not remembering. We have forgotten it. And so Allah has sent messengers and prophets to remind us that there is ni'mah that He has given to you. Hold on to it. Hold on to it strongly and thank Allah for that ni'mah that He has given to you. The third thing, he says, dafa'inul uqul, that he mentions. Dafa'inul uqul, he says, the prophets came to mention and to remind you that buried deep inside of you is a wisdom that you must pull out. There is a treasure inside of you that is buried inside of you. Pull it out, extract it, use it. So clearly we are not living up to our potential. We are clearly not living the way we should. Hence Amir al-Mu'mineen is warning. and saying there is a potential inside of you. Still, with all of this, why is it that insan is where insan is today? Look at all the prophets and the messengers who came. Yunus ibn Matta alayhi salam, Nabi Yunus, when he preached to his community and preached to his community and preached to his community, and they didn't listen, Allah was sending the punishment, he left. He went and got on the ship to leave. The whole community came and only 2 or 3 people stayed behind? No, the vast majority of the people perished in the community. No? Musa alayhi salam. Now, an amazing story of Musa alayhi salam in the Holy Quran, that he has now saved the Bani Israel from the hands of Fir'aun. So many stories of Bani Israel and warnings of the Bani Israel that apply to us. He goes and he saves them. They come to the sea. Fir'aun is behind them. Desert is this way, desert is that way. Water is in front of them. There is no escape. Fir'aun comes with his staff. He strikes the water. He says, Inna ma'ya rabbi sayahdeen. My Lord is with me. He will guide me. The water splits. They go through. You know what the first thing they ask of him? Once they go through, Fir'aun dies in the water, drowns. They go to the other side. They've survived. Allah has shown them a miracle, saved them from the clutches. Not only that, but all the gold and the silver that Fir'aun had robbed from them, taken from them in those many decades before, Musa sends men to go and bring that gold back and brings it to them. It's their rightful property. Do you know the first thing they ask of him? They see a tribe of people who are worshipping an idol. They say, oh, Musa, make for us an idol that we can worship, like this tribe. Allah has just saved them. Allah has just saved them. And imagine they are saying this to him. Allah makes them tarry and wander in the desert for decades. No? So I ask you again this question, that if you look at the stories of the Anbiya and the Mursaleen, scan through them, look at the world today, of those prophetic messages, how many actually believed? And how many perished? It is worth asking. And why? Because society has to change. Just like humanity is dynamically growing and changing, society is doing the same. Is it not? Now the question is it going towards the right direction? And what is the role of Islam in ensuring that that society becomes proper? It's a tough question, no? It's a very tough question. And you have to look at it from various aspects. The Quran describes the role of Islam. And indeed, Islam came into a homogeneous society where the vast majority of the people who lived there were the Arabs, of the tribes that were there, whether it was in Mecca, the Quraysh, whether that was Aus and Khazraj in Medina, others. There were people of other religions like the Jews and the Christians who had sort of over the centuries before moved into Hijaz. Some say due to running away from persecution. But for the most part, it was a homogeneous society. It wasn't like what we have today where we live with so many different ethnicities, so many different religions. It was fairly homogeneous. So now Rasul comes and he gives this message. And this message, what does it say? That if you repent, if you fix your ways and go back to Allah, Allah will forgive you. And the ayah, it says, فَمَنْ تَابَ مِنْ بَعْدَ ظُلْمِهِ وَأَصْلَحَا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَتُوبُ عَلَيْهِ. The ayah, it says it very clearly, that whoever repents. Now when you talk about repentance, the significance of this word is that, yes, I repent, that is the definition of the word. But in true significance, it means I turned away from Allah. I turned my face away from Allah, wal-ayadu billah. My tawbah is that I turn my face back to Allah. But is that enough? No. It says, فَمَنْ تَابَ مِنْ بَعْدِ ظُلْمِهِ. Whoever repents after doing injustice. Not just injustice in the world, injustice on themselves. وَأَصْلَحَ. And reformed, set things right. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَتُوبُ عَلَيْهِ. Allah will accept their repentance, will forgive them, set them right. So it must be a constant process. So now let me explain to you this word, aslaha. Aslaha, the ulama, they explain, it is always explained and it is always proposed opposite to or juxtaposed to fasad. The word fasad is used in the Holy Quran in different places. The most famous of the ayahs, the most repeated ayah, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. Fasad has spread in the world because of what humanity has done. So humanity does one of two things. Either it does islah, fixes things, sets things right, reforms things, or it does fasad, it spoils things. And when you talk about fasad, the definition again is corruption. But in Quranic sense, the significance of that word is to take something of value and destroy its value. Take it and corrupt it completely. And so Islah is to say, look, I have something of value that Allah has given to me, let me ensure that it stays valuable. That is the human life, that is the sanctity of human desire, human promotion, human advancement of societies, improvement of the lot of people so that people are living the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to live. All of these things are considered islah. And so when it comes to human beings and in societies, how does Islam deal with this? Well, there are some aspects that are so corrupt in human society that Islam comes and says, no, this is not acceptable. It is not acceptable to do this. And it is because this practice of human beings is creating a disease inside the society. One example is slavery. Yes? Slavery had been practiced for hundreds of years prior to the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So now look at how Islam came to change society. You all know this. It did not abolish slavery outright. It didn't say holding slaves and keeping slaves is haram, because it knew that the impact on society would be very harmful. Moreover, the slaves themselves who had now been freed would be treated even worse to some degree because they had no one to take care of them. They'd been thrown out, they will have no property, no one will give them work, they will have no source of food, etc. Many had families. So Islam instead said, look, take it upon yourself to free the slaves. And not only free them, but use it as a means by which you can elevate your morality. See how it takes the individual and makes the individual a unit by which society changes. The ayah, it says, فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ فَكُّ رَقَبَةِ. Quran, we need only Quran. That they have not tried to scale the steep ascent, to do what is hard. In fact, they don't even know what it is. It means to free the slave. It means to free the slave and let them go. And yet there is that. And you see the people around Rasulullah who used to vie with Rasulullah. They used to come and they'll say, Ya Rasulullah, I am giving a sadaqah in this amount. And another will come and I am giving sadaqah in a higher amount. They will try to show that they are a true Muslim. So when the ayah of the slavery came, people felt the desire to get these slaves freed. Yet now you have the example of the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. And let me give you the most powerful example that you have heard over and over and over again. That in a world in Arabia where the Arabic language had so much power, where the Arabs were known for their spoken word, their poetry, their ability to write, their prose, Rasulullah in the first call to Salat, he brings a freed slave. One who could not pronounce the Shah when he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Social change. And doing so by first declaring that this practice is corrupt. Get rid of it. And you see in the legacy of all the Aimma al-Athhar. Imam Ali Zainul Abidin, history is replete with incidences where he will bring the slaves, he will buy them, he will educate them, and he will release them. All our Imams. Another example of things that were so corrupt that Islam said we cannot tolerate this. In the early years in Mecca, the ayat of the Holy Quran, if you see them, they came on the occasion stating to the people of Quraysh that practice proper business transactions with each other. Deal with each other properly in business. Don't cheat each other. There was a lot of cheating in that time. People would misappropriate funds, cheat others, weigh things inappropriately to gain an upper hand financially. Quran came down to say, don't do that. And in addition, in those early years in Mecca, it said, stay away from usury, interest. Stay away from riba. Riba is something that the ayah in Mecca, it says that it has no value with God. It will not multiply with God. Instead, give zakat, give charity, because charity will multiply in the eyes of God. But if you see the ayah of the Quran in Mecca, it doesn't say it's haram. It doesn't prohibit it. It says don't do it. It has no value in the eyes of God. Zakat is better. Now Rasulullah, he moves. He leaves Mecca, he comes to Medina. In the first years in Medina, another ayah comes. Now the ayah is clearer. It clearly says that riba is batil. It is void. It is something that is considered to be evil, and it is haram. Stay away from it. Stay away from it. Again another verse comes. See, slowly, slowly, Islam is starting to remove these vices, these things that are corrupt. Battle of Uhud takes place a few years later. After the Battle of Uhud, another ayah comes down. This one now says, those of you, and I am paraphrasing, those of you who have given loans to somebody, don't take compounded interest. Meaning, if you don't pay me after a year, you have to give me 10% on top of the principal, and after 6 months, it'll become 50% on top of the principal. Don't compound the interest. Allah does not like this. People were getting the warning. Now, you see, right before the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he is about to pass from this world. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. He is about to leave from this world, and the final ayah, it comes. It outright prohibits riba. Outright. And not only does it outright prohibit the riba, it defines what happens to the person who engages in riba. It says those people, first of all, it says, look, if you have riba, it gives you a chance. Quran is full of hope and warning. It says those of you who have interest-bearing loans or who have given interest-bearing loans, forgive them. Forgive them. Don't take the riba. Don't take the interest. But then it gives a stark warning. This just before the demise of Rasulullah. It says anybody who takes riba has waged war on Allah and His Rasul. Subhanallah. Anyone who has taken interest has waged war on Allah and His Rasul. See in the fashion with which Quran, Islam has come and has changed society. Even then, do you not think people practice these things in the Muslim world? What can we say? Yes? But Islam has come, and it has a philosophy of change. So I ask this question, that if it has come with God's perfect message, with the Nabi giving the message in a perfect manner, then why is it that we sit in today's circumstance? Will any of you today say that Islam has changed the societies of the world? Maybe in some ways it has. Muslims have spread. Islam is the fastest growing religion. Muslims have reached every corner. More importantly, the Husainis have reached every corner. Majlis is taking place everywhere, indeed. But would any of you say that society has changed the way Islam had intended it to? Tough question, no? I will reserve judgment. I don't know if you want me to give an answer or not, but I will keep my answer as neutral as possible. Because I think we are awaiting the dhuhur of Imam al-Mehdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Please move forward. I'm being told to ask you to move forward, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. I promise I showered today. I did. I put cologne, deodorant, so you can come close, it's okay. At least there's no fan behind me. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على So why is it that we are caught in this quagmire? Well, this is me just thinking by myself, and maybe this is my thought reflecting on what Imam Hussain said as he was leaving Mecca. But how is it that it will be known where we stand? If society was a utopia, an Islamic utopia, then it would be easy to fold into that utopia. Yes? If society was purely Islamic the way it should be and we were properly practicing Islam, how could you distinguish those who had faith and those who were just following the crowd? Very difficult. Allah obviously knows, but there must be a test for those who believe. I said to you that the minute you say you believe, there has to be a test. So maybe the delay in the reformation of society as a whole is a means by which insan is being tested, not? That until the dhuhur of our Imam and the setting right of everything that is happening in the world, maybe the cause and the purpose is for insan to struggle. It is for insan to improve. It is for Allah to see which one of us truly belongs amongst, forget about the 313, but the 10,000 who follow in the support of Al-Imam Al-Mehdi. How is it that we can be tested? And it is a strange thing that human nature, it is always a double-edged sword. Yes? And I said this to you yesterday, that the very thing that gives me power, which is my ability to choose, it is also my greatest pitfall. It is the greatest thing that causes me to stumble. And you will see that insan in his choosing, even in his deciding, doesn't use reason. You will say that's a crazy statement, right? Of course we use reason, right? We use reason. So then why are societies the way that they are? Let me tell you. They did a study where they took people and they told them that you're going to be shown some data from a study that is being done, from another study that's being done. It was all part of, it was not real. They had made it up, but they didn't tell the participants. And they said, we want you to tell us what you think about the results of this fake study, which they didn't know about, what it means to you. The two groups of people who were brought in to take this test, this experimentation, one of them was pro-capital punishment, death penalty, strongly pro-capital punishment. The other was completely anti-capital punishment, anti-death penalty. So they brought them in and they made them look through the data. In the end of the study, you know what they found? They found that when they showed the ones who were pro-capital punishment, fake data that supported what they believe in, that capital punishment is good, it protects society, it keeps crimes down, their viewpoint on capital punishment just got stronger. Same went on the opposite end to those who were anti-capital punishment. However, when they switched them, when they switched the studies, showed the one pro-capital punishment data that was against capital punishment, or showed the negative side of capital punishment, the ones who were pro-capital punishment were dismissive of the data. Why? Where did reason go? If the data is so convincing, why not accept it? Yes? Why not take it? Why not accept it? Why does your reason not play a role in this? This is something called confirmation bias. It means that what I believe in, I want someone to confirm it for me. And the minute they confirm what I believe in, I will be very quick to join their group. I will not look at what else they do. They believe in what I believe in, they confirm what I have long held in my mind, so I have to follow them, irrespective of whether it is correct or not correct. Human beings do not use reason when they plan and they decide. And I will prove that to you, inshallah, in the next few nights. You will throw me out of here. It's a strange thing. Human beings are strange, strange creatures. But you see why societies are the way they are, why the state of the world the way it is. It is the way insan has been made. And that's why societies have changed over the many generations. Cultures have come and changed over the many generations. And we see ourselves not any better than we were 100 years ago. Not any better than we were 1,000 years ago. We are still on the same pitfalls that we were before. And in some ways worse off than we were. And yet, every society is the same. Every society is the same. Some scientists, they did what is called a PCA analysis. All right, I'm going to bore you with some science. It's called principal component analysis. They took data, lots and lots of data, all right, from 414 different societies. 414 different societies over 10,000 years. Not 100 years, 10,000 years. You'll say, how's that possible? Old data, old historical records. They took all that data, compiled it, and then they saw how societies changed over 100 period, 200 period, 300 period, etc., etc. They looked at 17 factors that cause societies to change. 17 factors. Of those 17 factors, in this PCA, in the principal component analysis, they found only 2 things that every society was using as a cause for change. 2 things out of the 17. Guess what they were? Anyone know? Agricultural advancement, warfare. 2 things. Agricultural advancement and warfare. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Agriculture, because without it, you don't eat. We're not talking today where Amazon is delivering your food. Even Amazon has to go to a farm to pick up the apples and the things that you are getting dropped at your doorstep, no? No agriculture, no food. No plants, no trees, animals don't live. No meat, no chicken, gone. Yes? Agriculture. Agriculture determined societal shift and how societies evolved over time. And number 2, warfare. Think about it, that insan, the minute insan has resources and assets and has expanded their land, what happens? Other people covet that land, covet those resources, and want to grab them. They want to take them. And so now, Islam comes, and what does it say? It says, look, recognize the fact that whatever Allah has given to you, someone else has a share in it. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib breaking the ground, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, breaking the ground in the hot desert, breaking the rock. Everyone comes watching. Amir al-Mu'mineen is breaking the ground. What is he doing? He is, after a fool's quest, breaking the ground in this desertous, rocky area. Nothing is here. Breaking the ground. He breaks it. And finally, after all his effort, a spring comes out, water. They say, Ali is going to be rich now. Ali will be rich because he has sprung water in the middle of the desert. Now he can spread that water, make gardens, make farms, lots of money. Amir al-Mu'mineen comes out, wipes his brow, and immediately says, I have given this as a donation to the orphans. Yeah. Agriculture and warfare. It's data, my dears. I'm not telling you of my own opinion. And if you think again, these are the 2 things that shape. So just look at what Islam talks about. Islam describes in the Quran that I have made gardens for you. Gardens of what? Pomegranate and different things, beautiful. He says, eat of it. He says, eat. Allah says, eat of it. And when the day comes to harvest the fruit, harvest. But he says, don't do israf. Inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifin. Allah does not like wastage. Not wastage in the sense that you're taking it and just throwing it. Wastage in the sense that you took it for yourself and you decided you didn't want to share. Even though you could have taken the produce that you had harvested. Islam is teaching you. And so in a sense, when you talk about societal change, you're talking, yes, on things that we cannot tolerate, corruption, like interest, like slavery, like the murder of an innocent life, etc., etc. These sorts of things, Islam is very clear and blunt, does not tolerate. But on other things like philosophical thinking, how you approach your assets, how you approach what Allah has given to you, all of these things, Islam says, look, adopt a more humanistic approach to things. Give of what God has given to you. Acknowledge what God has given and share the right with somebody else. Ensure. And the question always comes that if Islam is teaching, I'm not telling you anything new. You know that you have to give 20% in khums if you have surplus. You know that if you are a trader in camels, or you've got raisins or grains, and you come to a certain amount, a certain nisab, you have to give zakat, 2.5% on that. You know all of these rules. You know that if a poor person comes and extends his hand, you should give charity. This is known and common sense. So then why is the world in the state it is today? And what's our role? You will see that there are people like Abu Dharr who shout at the top of their voices. Yes? Abu Dharr, mashallah, they say that when he was banished from Medina, he was sent to Damascus. They got tired of him in Damascus because he walked into Damascus and he saw Muawiyah la'natullahi alayhi's castle and the palaces and the opulent homes, and he started in the loudest of his voice protesting. That with whose money have you bought these things? Is it with the money of the Muslims? And with what opulence and what kingliness are you living when there are poor who are drowning in the gutters of the streets of Damascus? He didn't remain silent until finally Muawiyah said to Uthman, who have you sent to me over here? Uthman, he says, don't send him back to us. We don't want him. Send him somewhere else. So the history describes, we don't know if it is accurate, but likely it is. I will tell you why. They sent him to the south of Lebanon. Ya Allah. To Jabal Amil. And now you know why the south of Lebanon is like this always, no? Because they are from the blood of Abu Dharr. You have people like this in history, not just in Islam. In the 1600s, in England, there was a lot of persecution of even Christian minorities. And one of those minorities were the Quakers. We know the Quakers today who are in the state of Pennsylvania. Those Quakers in the 1600s departed from England, not only because of religious differences with the Church of England, but also because of they couldn't earn a living properly, the economy was down, etc. One man, his name was Benjamin Lay. Look his history up, he's an interesting guy. Benjamin Lay, he left England, sailed to what is today Barbados, one of the islands in the Caribbean. He set up a little shop there. There were lots of English people there, lots of English expats who were living in Barbados. They all had sugarcane plantations. Guess who was working on the plantations? Slaves. All slaves. This man, Benjamin Lay, didn't have a plantation, he had a shop. And one day, some young slaves, children of some of the slaves, came into his shop, and they took some food or something sweet, and they ate it without paying for it. And he saw them, and he caught them immediately. And he punished them. And after punishing them, he sat down and he said, what have I done? His Quaker faith made him think that, is this the proper approach? And is what we are doing correct with these people who are human, yet we're treating them like property? And I cannot even describe to you the torture that was inflicted upon the slaves. There are some stories that you don't do to an animal what they did to these people. So what did this man Benjamin Lay do? He didn't sit quiet, he started protesting. He started protesting not only in Barbados, but they kicked him out of Barbados, so he went to Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, he started protesting in the streets. He started giving out flyers. He started telling everybody that it is not God's law that one human being should own another human being. Loud. So much so that his own Quaker church got tired of him and they said, please stop coming. You're bringing negative attention to us. Is this what we have to do in society? This is what Quran is telling us? Islam is telling us that we must go out and shout at the loudest of our voices? I don't think that that's the answer. Because if that was the case, our imams' voices would have been louder than anyone else, would they not? Yet when Khilafah was taken, was assumed by people who maybe should not have, what did Amir al-Mu'mineen do? He says, it was poking me in my eye just like a thorn, and I had one of two options to choose. Either I pick up the sword or I remain silent. He says, I chose the latter. I chose to remain silent for the good of this ummah. Look at the beauty of it. So it is not necessary that we need to shout and scream as Muslims, as carriers of the message of Islam to whatever degree that we are, that we have to shout and scream to change society, but to say, what is it that we can do ourselves? And the answer is in the words of Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala. He says, كونوا دعاة للناس بغير ألسنتكم. Call people to your way without opening your mouth, without using your tongues. They say, when Imam al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, when he was brought to Samarra and imprisoned, Al-Muhtadi al-Abbasi, the Khalifa at that time, he called the jailer and he said to him, go and appoint your two severest guards on Aba Muhammad so that they can treat him so badly. So badly. So they send these two jailers, this man, he sends these two jailers. 1 week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by. No one hears anything. No one hears. So Muhtadi al-Abbasi, he calls the supervisor, the jailer, he says, what happened? I sent you with instructions to put the two severest guards upon him and inflict punishment upon him, difficulty upon him. He remained silent, he didn't say. His head was down. So the Abbasi Khalif, he says, speak, why are you standing there so silently? He says, what can I say? He says, when I opened the door of the jail cell, I saw the two of them praying next to Aba Muhammad. He said, go call them. Go call these two jailers who you claim to be the most severe. They go and bring them. They come and they stand in front of the Abbasi Khalif. He looks at them and he says, what happened to you? You were sent with instructions to inflict punishment and severity and pain upon Aba Muhammad al-Hasan al-Askari. What has happened to you? And how is it that I hear you are standing in prayer next to him? They said, what can we say about a man who fasts all day and prays all night? He says, they said, إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْنَا Ya Allah, إِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْنَا أَرْعَدَتْ فَرَائِصُنَا. He says, they said to the Abbasi Khalif that if this man, Aba Muhammad al-Hasan al-Askari, ever looked at us while we were in that cell with him, he said, our insides would shake. Our insides will shake. We will be in such a state that we feel we cannot even control our own nafs. And we felt only love for him that we can stand in prayer next to him. There was no need to shout and scream and object and make noise. Even though society is going in the direction that it is, hold by what Al-Imam As-Sadiq, he says, كونوا دعاة للناس بغير ألسنتكم ليروا منكم الورع والاجتهاد والصلاة والخير. Show people the way. Show them your way without opening your mouth, without using your tongue, and show them 4 things that they can see in you. War, fear of God. That means what? Humility. Don't walk around with arrogance. Humility. Ijtihad. Work hard. Struggle, struggle, struggle. Don't be one of those people who sits comfortably in his house and has taken everything for granted. Struggle. Salat, worship. Make sure you worship. And khair. Ensure that anytime anyone comes to you, that the only thing they will get out of you is goodness. You want to change society, that's how you do it. That's how you will do it. And that's why you will see that when it comes to the instruction of Islam, sweeping change It's difficult. Does that mean we don't live in society? No, we all live in a society that is secular today, no? Does Islam say, no, you should not do that? No, it does not say that. But it does say, recognize a few things. One, know how to interact with people. Because people surely need somewhere to turn. You've heard the story about this extremist Nazi. There was an extremist Nazi who, at the age of 14, adopted the Nazi white supremacist ideology and was very violent, extremely violent. Not only in his words and thinking, but in his actions. And after some years, many years, he realized the folly of his ways. He had children, he realized the follies of his ways, and he went from being a Nazi, a white supremacist, to being a reformer, to being an activist against it. So when they asked what happened, how did this happen? He said, when I was 16 or 14, whenever I adopted this Nazi way, he said, I had a need. I was empty, something was missing inside of me, and I was looking for something to fulfill that need, to hold on to. And the only thing that grabbed me, or that was available for me to grab at that moment, was this movement, the Nazi movement. And when I grabbed it, my need was fulfilled. So that's why they say when the time comes, and that's why Islam advocates that if someone comes to you with a need, don't turn them away. Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, you know, he says, أعوذ بالله من مغيث يغيثني فلا أغيث له. He says, I take refuge in God that someone comes and asks me for help and I don't help them. Fulfill the need of someone and you will automatically pull them into your way. Interaction between people. Number two, cultural symbols. Ensure that whatever symbol is in front of you, if it is not your cultural symbol, recognize that it has meaning to somebody else. And as long as it does not go against the code of God, there is no problem in them having that symbol. In fact, you should respect it because they do. That's why Islam always says, in our Sharia it says, that if a Christian man and a Christian woman get married in their way, then they are married in the eyes of God. We don't have to say because they didn't do it the way we did it that they're living in sin. Jewish man, Jewish woman get married in their way, they are married. Even our brothers and sisters of the Ahl Sunnah, if they get married in their way, our madhab teaches us that they are married. Yes, they didn't do it the way we have to do it. It is to understand that there is a symbol for everyone, and as long as it does not transgress God's law, Allah has said, allow it for the good of society. Adopt it for the good of society. Ensure that it remains there. And then finally, the things to recognize are the value systems. If we are dealing with others and playing our role in the change of society, we have to address what is considered to be a value system. Today, more than ever, we have to think about this very, very carefully. Values are changing. And we have to hold on to ours. And we cannot force our values on anyone else, but we have to ensure that we understand why our values are the way they are, especially for these kids. Teach them why we believe what we believe. And not just take that value or that value system for granted. That's how you change things. Societies change because people have not held on to what they hold on to strongly. And yet you see the followers of Imam Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. You are a testament to this. The millions who go to Karbala on Arba'in are a testament to this. How did Abi Abdullah al-Hussein do this? Through being an example of the best model of an insan. All the things I described to you. To draw people in. People saw the name Hussein and they said, how can we not love this human being? How can we not feel closeness to him? And that's why he established himself without bending. When he was leaving Mecca, and I am about to finish. He was leaving Mecca and the people were telling him not to leave, but the ruling regime, the governor was sent with the message that stop him. Stop him. And his name was Yahya ibn Sa'id ibn As. His brother, Amru, he sent his younger brother Yahya to go chase after. He said, take some men. Hussein has just left Mecca. Go chase after him. Stop him. They go. They surround Imam Hussain as he's leaving Mecca. He looks at Imam Hussain. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, ألا تتق الله أنك خرجت من الفريق وتفرق بين الناس. He says, fear God, that you have left from all these people. 8th of the day of Dhul Hijjah, everyone is going into Mecca on Yawm al-Tarwiyah. Day of Arafah is coming up, day of Eid is coming up, and you are going in the opposite direction. You are leaving. And by doing so, people are talking, people are gossiping, and by your actions, you are causing people to become divided. You're causing division in the community of Rasulullah. Imam Hussain, he says one word to him. He quotes the ayah of the Quran, Li amali wa lakum amalukum. Li amali wa lakum amalukum. You have your action and I have mine. أنتم بريئون مما أعمل وأنا بريء مما تعملون. You are separate and free of any responsibility of my actions, and in the same sense, I am free from any of your actions. This is how you establish yourself. And this is how you ensure that if society is going to change in the wrong direction, you are not changing with it. You have your actions, I have mine. You are free to do what you want, I am free to do what I want. And that's why this position of Imam Hussain is unique. Nobody has it. Nobody has it. And that's why Rasulullah, he says, Inna al-Hussain akbar fi as-sama' min fil ard. Hussein's status, it is reported, Rasul says, is bigger in the sky. He is more valued in the sky than he is in the earth. Innahu misbahul huda wa safinatun najat. He is the lantern of guidance and the ark of salvation. That is Hussain. That's why a man from Kufa, when he comes, he brings a letter from Kufa to Imam Hussain in Medina. Imam Hussain reads the letter. He says to this young man, this Kufi man, give me some days, I will respond to you. The man, he says, I stayed in Medina. I heard there was some commotion, there was some activity. So I decided to go see who is this Hussain, to find out more about him. He is from Kufa, he doesn't know. He says, I came to the alleyway where his home was. As I approached, I noticed that some camels and a caravan was being prepared. He says, he's describing in his own words, I saw an older man sitting on a chair near the door. He said, I assumed that that is Al-Hussein ibn Ali. He says, as I was sitting there, somebody called out and said, put your heads down. Don't look. And when I saw when whoever was saying it, it was a young man who looked like the moon in front of me. He was walking out and he was telling people, put your heads down, do not look. He said, I put my head down, but not before I glanced 2 women walking side by side, coming towards the camels, and this young man who was before them put them on the camel. So I did not know who they were. I said, who are these 2 ladies and the young man who went before them? So the person told me, do you not know? That is Zainab al-Kubra and her sister Kulthum. And the young man in front of them, that is Abul Fadl al-Abbas, Qamar Bani Hashim. He says, no sooner had they come out, I saw 2 young girls come outside. And holding hands coming towards the camel, he said, I asked, who are these 2? And with them, behind them, a young man about 18 years old, holding the hand of his mother as he comes out. The same person, he told me, he says, the 2 young girls, that is Sukaina bint al-Hussein and Fatima bint al-Hussein, coming and being ridden on the camel. The young man behind them, that is Ali al-Akbar with his mother, Layla. And then one by one, coming out, finally, he says, I saw a man whose face, it's reported, was like the light of the moon. I had not seen a face like this. I asked immediately, who is this young man who is walking? He says, that is Ali ibn al-Hussein Zayn al-Abidin. One by one coming out. Imagine this is the way that Imam Hussain leaves. And that's why when he was asked that, Ya Aba Abdullah, you are leaving Medina to go? Fine, you must go. Why are you taking your women and children? Imam Hussain, he visits all his relatives. And he comes, it is reported, he comes to the grave of his grandfather, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And as he comes to the grave of Rasulullah, وَكَأَنِّي بِسَيِّدِي وَمَوْلَايَ بَعَبْدِ اللَّهِ الْحُسَيْنِ وَهُوَ يُنَادِي السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا نبي الله أنا الحسين بن علي فرخك وابن فرختك وصبتك الذي خلفتني في أمتك. O Rasulullah, salam of Allah upon you. I am Hussein ibn Ali. I am the son of your daughter Fatima. I am your grandson who you have left as your successor in the community. اشهد عليهم يا رسول الله أنهم خذلوني ولم يحفظوني. O Rasulullah, my grandfather, bear witness that they have abandoned me and forsaken me. They have not cherished and protected who I am to you. They say Imam Hussain, he comes to the grave and kneels down on the grave. He says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Inni uhibbul ma'roof wa unkiru anil munkar. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger. I declare openly that I stand up for the truth and I deny falsehood. It is related that Imam Hussain, he fell asleep on the grave of Rasulullah. He saw his grandfather, Rasulullah, in his dream. Rasulullah saying, Ya bunayya Hussain wa ka'anni araka an qaribin murammalan bidima'ik مذبوحا في أرض كربلاء وأنت مع ذلك عطشان. Oh my son, O Hussein, it is as if very soon I see you have been drenched in your blood, oppressed and butchered on the land of Karbala. And with that you were thirsty and they did not give you any water. It is reported that Imam Hussain, he cried out in his dream and he said, Ya Rasulallah, لا حاجة لي لهذه الحياة الدنيا فأدعوني إليك. Oh my grandfather, I have no need for the life of this world anymore. Call me to you right now. Take me into that grave. Rasulullah, it is reported, he said that, Ya Hussein, your path leads you, a task that has been placed upon you. Imam Hussain wakes from the grave. He goes to the grave of Al-Imam Al-Hassan, spends some time at the grave of Al-Imam Al-Hassan. And indeed, he must have gone like a child runs to their mother, to the grave of Fatima Zahra. And he must have called out and he said, Ya Ummah, أنا ولدك يا الحسين قد جئتك يا أمّا. I am your son Hussein. I have come to you, my mother. I am leaving your side and going away. Imam Hussein visits the ladies of the Banu Hashim. Finally coming to Salama. Salama sees Al-Hussein coming into the room. She looks at him and immediately says, لا تحزني بخروجك إلى العراق يا بني. Don't make me sad by leaving Medina and going towards Iraq. فإني سمعت جدك رسول الله يقول إن ولدي الحسين يقتل في أرض العراق في مكان اسمها كربلاء. I heard your grandfather tell me that my son Hussein is going to be martyred and killed in the land of Iraq in a place known as Karbala. He has brought for me the sand of this place and has told me to watch the sand. Imam Hussein, he says to her, يا أمّا وإني لأعلم أني مذبوح مقتول. I already know that I am going to be martyred. I already know that I am going to be killed. And in the answer to the question of why are you taking your women and children, Imam Hussein, he says to Salama, وَلَقَدْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَرَى حَرَمِي وَأَطْفَالِي مُشَرَّدِينَ مُقَيَّدِينَ وَهُمْ يَطْلَبُونَ النُّصْرَ فَلَا يَجِدُونَ. Allah has decided, He has willed that my children and my women are to come with me. They are to be taken captive. They are to be inflicted with all types of pain as they call for support and nobody helps them. Imam Hussein, he holds the hand of Salama. She says to him, Ya Bunay, then don't go. If you know that this is the fate, then don't go. He says to her, Ya Ummah, وإني لأعلم اليوم الذي يقتل فيه وأعلم الساعة التي يقتل فيها. I know the day in which I will be killed. I know the hour in which I am going to be killed. وإني لأعلم الحفرة التي يدفن فيها. I know the hole in the ground where they are going to bury me, Ya Ummah. The days go by and Salama going into the room and looking at the bottle with the sand. The first of Muharram has arrived. The days are going and she is looking inside the room, looking at the sand which has remained until the day of Ashura. She looks at the bottle. The sand has turned into blood. Salama, she says, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and begins to walk to the grave. Arriving at the grave, she puts her head on the grave and she says, Ya Mawlati ya Fatima, my master, O Fatima Zahra, I have come to give you the news. أيوة حسينا أيوة مطلوب وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. I apologize, I went very long tonight. أجركم من الله باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونقسم عليك بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها لعن الله ظالميها. اللهم شافي كل مريض، اللهم رد كل غريب، اللهم فك كل أسير، اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك يا كريم. اللهم وفقنا لمراضيك وجنبنا معاصيك وثبت أقدامنا على صراطك المستقيم وخذ بأيدينا إليك يا أرحم الراحمين وفرج عنا يا الله فرجا عاجلا قريبا كلمح البصر أو هو أقرب من ذلك، وافرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. يا حسين.
يا حسين يا حسين
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، 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 اجڑے نہ کوئی ایسے، اجڑے نہ کوئی ایسے، زینب کی پکار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، ماتم تو کرے کیوں کر، روئے تو کسے آخر، کوئی اہل ثقیفہ کی بیٹی بھی ہو بن چادر، زینب کی طرح کڑیاں پہنے وہ بازار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، ماں تو نہیں بھولے گی یہ خشک زباں تیری، کیا تیر کے قابل تھی یہ ننھی سی جاں تیری، اب کس کو دلاسے دوں، اب کس پہ پیار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، کب تک مجھے جینا ہے وعدے پہ تیرے اکبر، ان آنکھوں میں حسرت ہے دیکھو تو ذرا آ کر، بھیا میں تجھے دیکھوں اس دل کو قرار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، زہرا تیرے گلشن میں اب کیسے بہار آئے، ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन में अब कैसे बहार आए। मज़लूम का मातम है करते रहेंगे सारे, इस सिफ्त में शामिल हैं अल्लाह के नबी सारे। मज़लूम को रोने से चेहरों पे निखार आए। ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन में अब कैसे बहार आए। ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन में अब कैसे बहार आए। कब तक मुझे जीना है वादे पे तेरे अकबर, इन आंखों में हसरत है देखो तो जरा कर भैया मैं तुझे देखूं, इस दिल को करार आए। ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन में अब कैसे बहार आए। या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन, या हुसैन। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीर अल-मुअमिनीन, अस्सलामु अलैकी या खदीजत अल-कुबरा, अस्सलामु अलैकी या फातिमत अज़-ज़हरा, अस्सलामु अलैका या अल-हसन अल-मुज्तबा, अस्सलामु अलैका या अबा अब्दिल्लाह وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتك. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا علي بن الحسين ويا محمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي الإمام القائم صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والمستشهدين بين يديه جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلى الله عليه وسلم.